Community Health Worker Training, Cardiovascular Health and Diabetes, Module 5C, High Blood Pressure. Learning outcomes for this mini module. Understand how to measure blood pressure, identify where in the community people can get their blood pressure checked and treated, identify community health worker activities that create care connections for people at high risk for or with histories of high blood pressure. So where can people get their blood pressure checked other than from you, the community health worker? At home, so there's a lot of home blood pressure monitors now. At the pharmacy, or of course at the doctor's office or health center. Click on this video to learn how to accurately take a blood pressure using both a manual blood pressure cuff and electronic blood pressure cuffs.
It is important to check your blood pressure regularly to avoid complications. There are a variety of blood pressure machines available. First, we are going to discuss a manual arm blood pressure cuff. Then we will discuss an automatic arm blood pressure cuff. And lastly, we will explain an automatic wrist monitor. Every machine is different, so it is important that you read the instructions that came with your device. Before you take the blood pressure reading, you should rest for at least 5 minutes. You want to avoid the intake of caffeine or nicotine for at least 30 minutes prior to the blood pressure reading. For accurate results, you want to keep your feet flat on the floor. You want to sit still and avoid talking. Now we will discuss a manual blood pressure cuff. Stretch out your arm and position it at your heart level with your palm facing up. You want to expose the upper arm fully. Do not place the cuff over clothing. The side of the cuff that should be in direct contact with the skin is labeled this side against limb. Place the inflatable cuff around your arm about 1 inch above your elbow. Make sure the cuff is securely fastened around your arm. Securely fasten the gauge as shown here. Next, position the stethoscope so that the earpieces are pointing away from you. Then place the stethoscope into your ears as shown here. You can tap the diaphragm of the stethoscope to make sure that it is placed correctly in your ears. Then place the diaphragm of the stethoscope at the bend of your elbow and tuck it underneath the cuff. Next, lock the valve by spinning it all the way to the right. Then squeeze the bulb to inflate the cuff. Continue to inflate the cuff until you reach about 30 units above the estimated systolic pressure. After that, you can deflate the cuff by slowly spinning the dial to the left. Make sure the needle on the blood pressure gauge moves at about 2 increments per second. When you hear the first sound, note the number on the gauge. This is your systolic blood pressure. Continue to deflate the cuff gradually. Note the number where you last hear the sound. This is your diastolic blood pressure. Finally, you can deflate the cuff completely and remove it from your arm. Now we will move on to an automatic arm blood pressure cuff. Open the arm cuff so that you may place your arm through it. Position the cuff about 1 inch above the elbow. Pull the end of the cuff so that it tightens evenly around your arm. The symbols shown here should line up with the middle of your arm. You can then press the start-stop button to power on the machine. After about 3 seconds, the display will read 00. This indicates that the monitor is ready to measure. Using your hand that does not have the cuff on your arm, squeeze the inflation bulb and continue pumping until a down arrow appears. You should then wait as the cuff automatically deflates. If at any time you wish to stop the blood pressure reading, you can press the Start/Stop button. When the measurement is complete, the cuff will deflate entirely. The screen will then read your systolic pressure, your diastolic pressure, and your heart rate. You can now remove the cuff from the arm. The last device we will explain is an automatic wrist blood pressure cuff. Start by applying the cuff to your wrist with your palm facing the device. Make sure the edge of the cuff is about a ½ inch from the palm. Press the Start/Stop button to start the reading. The monitor will automatically inflate the cuff and begin the measurement. Stay still during this time. You will notice the cuff slowly deflate. Wait until the cuff deflates entirely. When the reading is finished, you will see the results appear on the screen. The screen will read your systolic pressure, your diastolic pressure, and your heart rate. Your systolic pressure is the top number reported in the blood pressure reading. This is the pressure in your blood vessels when your heart contracts. The diastolic pressure is the bottom number in the reading. This is the blood pressure in your vessels when your heart relaxes. Your ideal blood pressure is less than 120/80. A blood pressure greater than 140/90 is considered high. If you ever take your blood pressure and have a systolic pressure greater than 210 or a diastolic pressure greater than 120, you should seek medical attention immediately.
There's a number of things that can affect a blood pressure reading. You want to be sure, obviously, that the reading that you're getting is accurate. So you want to think about this. A person's blood pressure may be higher than normal or really higher than accurate for 30 minutes after they exercise, after they eat a large meal, drink caffeine, so coffee, tea, cola, Mountain Dew, or after they have smoked. It may also be higher, the blood pressure may also be higher if their bladder is full, or if you're using a blood pressure cuff that's too small for them. Other considerations when you're checking someone's blood pressure, you want to make sure to use the unaffected arm if the person has a broken arm, a dialysis shunt in one of their arms, or a mastectomy. So there's a number of steps that are important in terms of taking a blood pressure accurately. The person should be seated and not talking during the blood pressure. You want to have them resting against the back of a chair without their legs crossed. Both of their feet should be flat on the floor. And their arms should be supported and up at heart level. You're going to put the blood pressure cuff on just above the elbow, about an inch or so above the elbow. And again, get the person into the proper position with the back supported, their feet flat, and let them relax for at least 5 minutes before you check their blood pressure. If they've just run in, from work and they're running late and you take their blood pressure right away, it's going to be high, but that's not going to be an accurate reading. Again, put their arm at heart level supported on something, on a table. Pick the proper blood pressure cuff size. Put the blood pressure cuff on their arm. Deflate the cuff completely before you put it on their arm. Put the stethoscope underneath the bottom of the blood pressure cuff on the inside of the person's elbow. Inflate the cuff, and typically you inflate it about 20 millimeters of mercury above what their highest reading was, highest systolic reading the last time it was checked. So let's say their blood pressure was 160/90 last time, you would inflate it up to 180. Then you're going to deflate the cuff slowly while listening through the stethoscope to the pulse at their inner arm. You're going to write down the blood pressure numbers you hear. So the systolic number is when you first start to hear the heartbeat through the pulse, through your stethoscope. And the diastolic number is when that sound disappears or gets very faint. And then remove the cuff. If you take their blood pressure and something goes wrong, you can't hear well or whatever, and you have to repeat it, wait a couple of minutes before you repeat it, because if you repeat it again right away, you may not get an accurate reading. So here are some common errors when taking a blood pressure. They're sort of the opposite of all of the things that we just went over. In addition, sometimes a person's blood pressure is elevated because they're nervous or anxious or afraid. Also, if they're in pain, that can elevate their blood pressure, but that's just a temporary elevation. It's helpful for somebody who's monitoring their own blood pressures at home to have, a form like this where they're writing them down and they bring them into their doctor when they're coming in for care. Community health workers have a really important role to play around the treatment of high blood pressure and also in terms of prevention. So there's a lot of different ways that community health workers can help community members who are at risk of high blood pressure. Education and awareness programs can include teaching clients about the importance of having their blood pressure screened regularly, the importance of eating a low sodium diet, and of drinking alcohol in moderation or not at all, and of not smoking. As a community health worker, you can refer people to Rhode Island's Community Health Network. This is the link for it. And also teach people about the importance of staying active. For clients who've already been diagnosed with high blood pressure, community health workers have a very important role to play in supporting treatment and follow-up. You want to teach your clients to take their medicine exactly as prescribed, and also to tell their doctors about any other medicines, including over-the-counter medicines, herbs, dietary supplements that they are taking. Some of those other things can really have an effect on their blood pressure and on their blood pressure medicine. So for instance, medicine that reduces inflammation or swelling, like ibuprofen, decongestants or other cold medicines, diet pills, and herbs can all raise the blood pressure and may interfere with medicines for high blood pressure. So it's important for you to remind your clients to let their doctor know about anything that they're taking, essentially. You may also want to be regularly checking their blood pressure if that's part of your role, and also teach them to check their own blood pressure. Help them to get a home blood pressure device. There are a lot of little electronic blood pressures machines on the market now that are very affordable, and a lot of health insurance companies will pay for them now. So help your client get one and learn how to use it, and help them set up a log to record their blood pressure readings and to know at what blood pressure they need to call their healthcare provider right away. You're also going to support all of the lifestyle changes that we just talked about a moment ago. So a healthy diet, in particular, cutting down on sodium, exercising, quit smoking or chewing tobacco, and no more than moderate alcohol use. Help your clients follow up with regular doctor's visits. Even if they're feeling better, it's really important that they go for their regular visits, both to have their blood pressure monitored, but also for visits to make sure that they're not having any complications from the high blood pressure. So they're going to need their kidney functions checked and their eyes checked and all sorts of important health care. So you got to make sure that they go. And related to that, you have to really explain to them that even though they may be feeling better or may have never had any symptoms, it's important to keep taking the blood pressure medicine, or they could have damaged different parts of their bodies over time without even realizing it. And then in addition to all of those things, you want to communicate to the healthcare team any barriers or challenges that the person may have following the prescribed treatment so that those issues can be addressed. So, for instance, any trouble that they're having that's interfering with their ability to get to their appointments, or if they're not taking their medication regularly, if they're still eating a lot of salt, or if they're really having trouble adding physical activity to their daily routine. You're really the communicator, you're the bridge to help the healthcare team know what's really going on with them so that those issues can be addressed. You're going to try to address some of them yourself, but also it's important to involve the whole team. Now you can understand how to measure blood pressure, identify where in the community people can get their blood pressure checked and treated, and identify community health worker activities that create care connections for people at high risk for or with histories of high blood pressure. Congratulations on completing Module 5. Don't forget to go to the Google Classroom to complete the assessment for Module 5, high blood pressure. And the next module, Module 6, talks about high blood cholesterol.